Blood, actual blood, pooling on that canvas, smeared across the mat, on the hands of a mystery attacker who is becoming more dangerous, more untouchable, and more terrifying with every single week that passes, and WWE is standing there doing absolutely nothing about it. Bron Breakker, one of the most physically dominant, genetically gifted, and explosively powerful superstars this company has produced in an entire generation, was left bleeding on that mat last night. Bronson Reed, a 300-pound walking wrecking ball who has put grown men through announce tables without breaking a sweat, was left bleeding right alongside him. Two of the most physically imposing human beings on this entire roster, reduced to nothing. Laid out, broken, bleeding, and the person responsible, still walking free, still unidentified, still completely untouchable. If you are not angry right now, you are not paying attention, and on this channel, we pay attention to everything. Welcome to Ring Grumble 1, and what I am about to break down is going to make your blood boil just as much as mine is boiling right now. Let me walk you through exactly what happened because every single detail of this attack matters and I need you to understand the full picture before we start drawing conclusions. The show was moving along, the crowd was engaged, and Bron Breakker was doing what Bron Breakker does, being an absolute physical specimen, dominating everything in his path, looking every bit like the future cornerstone of this entire company. Bronson Reed was right there alongside him, two giants occupying the same space, two men whose combined weight and physical presence should have made them the safest people in that entire arena. Nobody sane picks a fight with either of these men individually. Nobody rational decides to go to war with both of them simultaneously. But the mystery attacker is not rational. The mystery attacker is not sane. The mystery attacker is operating on a completely different frequency from everyone else in that building. Cold, calculated, and utterly fearless in a way that is frankly starting to feel genuinely unhinged. Because what this person did to Bron Breakker and Bronson Reed last night was not just an attack. It was not just a beatdown. It was a surgical, methodical, breathtakingly violent dismantling of two physical giants that sent a message so loud and so clear that the entire WWE locker room should be sitting in stunned, terrified silence right now. And the blood changes everything. Here is what you need to understand about the significance of seeing Bron Breakker bleed on WWE television, and I need you to really sit with this for a moment. This is not a veteran journeyman who has been around long enough that fans are conditioned to seeing him in difficult situations. This is not a mid-card talent whose vulnerability we have already processed and accepted. Bron Breakker has been presented from day one as virtually indestructible, the son of Rick Steiner, the genetic culmination of one of the most legitimate, physically dangerous families in the history of professional wrestling. A man who moves at a speed that should be physically impossible for someone his size, who hits with a force that has legitimately rattled opponents on contact, who carries himself with the kind of natural, unearned confidence that you simply cannot teach or manufacture. Seeing this man bleed is not just shocking. It is deeply, profoundly unsettling in a way that fundamentally shifts the power dynamic of this entire story. Because if the mystery attacker can make Bron Breakker bleed, if they can get through that physical armor and leave a mark on someone this genetically exceptional, then there is genuinely nobody on this roster who is safe. Not the champions, not the legends, not the Hall of Famers. Nobody. And Bronson Reed bleeding alongside him only amplifies the terror exponentially. Because Reed is not just big, Reed is the kind of big that makes other big men look ordinary. 300+ pounds of Australian-born destruction who has spent years proving that his size is matched equally by his skill, his toughness, and his absolute refusal to stay down. Seeing Bronson Reed bloodied and broken on that mat is the equivalent of watching a tank get disabled on an open battlefield. Your entire understanding of what is possible has to be recalibrated from the ground up. Now let us talk about the brutality of this attack specifically because the manner in which it was carried out reveals so much about who we are dealing with and what their ultimate endgame actually is. This was not a sneak attack designed for quick damage and a fast escape. The mystery attacker did not strike from behind, land a finishing move, and disappear into the crowd before security could respond. No, this was prolonged. This was deliberate. This was someone who had all the time in the world, who was completely unbothered by witnesses or cameras or consequences, and who systematically worked over two enormous human beings with the kind of focused, almost clinical intensity that speaks to a level of preparation and commitment that goes far beyond simple revenge or opportunism. Think about what it takes physically and mentally to stand over Bron Breakker and Bronson Reed, to keep them down, to draw blood from both of them, and to do so with enough control and composure that you can execute your plan fully before walking away clean. That is not rage. Rage is sloppy. Rage makes mistakes. Rage leaves evidence and witnesses and loose ends. What the mystery attacker demonstrated last night was something far more dangerous than rage. It was discipline. It was mastery. It was someone operating at the absolute peak of their capabilities with zero emotional interference clouding their judgment. That level of controlled violence from an unidentified individual should be keeping every single person in WWE management awake at night. And yet the official response has been, once again, completely and embarrassingly inadequate. Where is the investigation? Where is the security review? Where are the consequences for an individual who has now escalated from backstage ambushes and cheap shots to leaving multiple superstars bloodied on live television in front of a paying audience? What message does it send to every superstar on that roster when they watch two of the most physically dominant people in the company get dismantled like this, and the corporate response is essentially a shrug and a vague promise to look into it? I will tell you exactly what message it sends. It sends the message that nobody in power actually knows who this person is or how to stop them. And that is perhaps the most terrifying revelation of this entire situation. Not the identity of the attacker, not even the brutality of the attacks themselves, but the fact that WWE as an institution appears completely powerless to identify, locate, or neutralize a threat that is operating openly and violently within their own programming. That is an institutional failure of the highest order. And the people sitting in those corporate offices need to be held accountable for allowing this situation to escalate to the point where we are watching legitimate blood on our television screens every single week. Now let us get into the strategic implications of this specific target selection, because the mystery attacker choosing Bron Breakker and Bronson Reed simultaneously is not random. Nothing about this person's actions has ever been random, and we need to stop treating their target selection as anything other than deeply deliberate and strategically meaningful. So why these two? Why now? What does removing Bron Breakker and Bronson Reed from the equation accomplish for this mystery attacker's broader plan? Here is my theory, and I want you to really engage with this in the comments because I think this is where the real story is hiding. Bron Breakker and Bronson Reed represent the most credible physical obstacle between the mystery attacker and whatever their ultimate objective is. We have been so focused on trying to identify who the attacker is that we have completely neglected to seriously ask ourselves what they actually want. What is the endgame here? What does this person gain by cutting through the most physically imposing superstars on the roster one by one? What position, what championship, what level of power or control are they systematically clearing the path toward? Because when you look at the targets selected so far and you draw a line connecting all of them, a picture starts to emerge. And that picture points towards something much bigger than a personal grudge or a championship opportunity. This looks like a hostile takeover. A deliberate, violent restructuring of the WWE power hierarchy executed by someone who has identified every obstacle and is methodically eliminating them in the most brutal and public way possible to send a message to whoever is waiting at the top of that ladder. Bron Breakker will come back from this. His genetics and his competitive fury guarantee that. Bronson Reed will come back from this harder and angrier and more dangerous than before, because that is exactly who Bronson Reed is at his core. But the question that keeps me up at night, the question I genuinely cannot answer with any confidence right now, is whether they will come back in time to matter. Whether the mystery attacker will have completed enough of their plan by the time these two giants recover and return that stopping them becomes exponentially more difficult or perhaps completely impossible. The clock is ticking. The body count is rising. The blood has been shed. And somewhere in that locker room, behind a face you trust and a smile you recognize, the mystery attacker is already planning their next move with the same cold, unhurried confidence they have displayed from the very beginning of this entire campaign of destruction. I need you in the comments right now, and I mean immediately. Do not wait until the end of this video. Who do you think the mystery attacker is? Do you think Bron Breakker and Bronson Reed team up for revenge when they return? And most critically, who do you think is the next target on this person's list? Drop every theory, every piece of evidence, every instinct you have been sitting on below right now, because this community has cracked WWE storylines wide open before, and we are going to do it again together. Share this video everywhere. Every wrestling group chat, every fan forum, every friend who watches WWE needs to see this breakdown, because Ringrumble 1 is the only place giving you the full, unfiltered, honest analysis this story deserves. Like the video, subscribe to the channel, turn on every notification, because this story is accelerating fast and we are covering every single development in real time. Ringrumble 1. When WWE tries to hide the truth, we find it every single time.